he was put in a tough spot. The whole team really believed he should have been on the team, and we tried to almost talk him into it. But he accepted the role. He thought about it that long to where he had to, finalize the lineup. But, it was 10th in the world. We all said, if you weren't the captain and you're sitting here number 10 in the world, is that captain going to take you? Of course, 100% of the time.
Do you think, like Colt said, he should be captain again?
That would be the ultimate comeback. I think he deserves another chance. From the time I talked to Keegan, which was literally the week after the U.S. Open, he's like, you're on this effing team. You're locked.
So were you surprised that you weren't playing alternate shot?
Maybe a little bit. I wasn't sure what format I would start in. I think Keegan didn't want to freak out and start changing things around, just assuming, I'll never forget, we were all right there on the green watching Shane make that putt, and it was just like, God, I wish that was us so badly, winning that cup.
Hey everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo here. Welcome into another edition of Straight Facts Homie, the podcast where we don't yell at you, we don't scream at you, we just talk about things that are relevant in sports, and we use this really wild concept called data to guide us through what we're seeing and what we expect to play out. We also have great conversations with a lot of interesting people. And if you like what you're listening to and seeing, please click that like and subscribe button, especially on YouTube. It helps us grow the show and get it out there to as many people as possible. It's been an interesting year in golf. We've chronicled that a lot, and I'm not sure anybody had more of a breakout year on the PGA Tour than this week's guest. JJ Spaun finally won his second PGA Tour event, and it was a big one, the U.S. Open at Oakmont, where he made that unbelievable putt on 18 in the dark and in the rain to secure the one-stroke victory. And then, of course, that launched him onto his first ever Ryder Cup team, and obviously there's a lot to get in there. So why don't you sit back and enjoy this Straight Facts Homie conversation with U.S. Open champion and Ryder Cupper, JJ Spaun. JJ, thanks for being with us. So let's just sort of go through this year for you, right? Obviously, you'd won before once on tour, the Valero Open, came close at the Players, breakthrough win at the U.S. Open with that unbelievable putt, and then the Ryder Cup. How would you describe how 2025 has been for you?
Oh, man, it's been a breakthrough year for me, honestly. It's kind of nice. I feel like I've been working so hard over my, past 9 years on tour in my career, just, waiting for, that time to really reap the fruits of my labor. And, it's finally came to fruition.
What did you see or think or hear in your game that made you think that might be a possibility?
Honestly, I feel like my putting has gotten a little bit more consistent. Ball striking wise, I've always been pretty solid from fairway to green. I've picked up a little bit of distance, but without sacrificing accuracy. So I think, probably since the middle of 2024, I picked up a little bit of distance. So I'd like to think that played a little bit of a role to getting me in a more desirable distance from greens to be more aggressive, which obviously, if you pull off the shots, lead to more birdies and less bogeys. So
close at the Players, right? So close at the Players. What did you take away from that near win experience, for lack of a better term, that you think helped you down the road a couple months later at Oakmont?
Yeah, the Players was huge. I think it kind of set up eventually where I would position myself for the U.S. Open. I had a close call going into the final round of the Sony Open. I was holding the lead there. I was super nervous sleeping on that. Was really scared about crapping the bed Sunday, but I didn't. And I think I kind of grew off that. So then, fast forward a couple months at the Players, yes, different magnitude of an event, but in facing Rory in the playoff, I just knew, as long as I try to stick to my game plan and give myself a chance that week, I would be able to pull something off, and I got close. So that playoff was big. I didn't win during the playoff, but, I hit a lot of the shots how I wanted to. The one on 17 was exactly how I imagined it. It just didn't get hit enough by the wind, and unfortunately, it ended my chances of winning that tournament. But, having these near misses went a long way. So, once I was at the U.S. Open and had an opportunity there, I was ready to give it another shot.
And take me through Oakmont, right? Because I was fortunate to play that course once, parred the first 2 holes, and then shot, I think, 98. Okay? Like
Mm.
people that haven't played it and haven't dealt with it and haven't sort of experienced it. I mean, there's not a drop of water on the course. Really, the only OB is on the first hole to the right. What made Oakmont such a difficult test?
Man, it's just a beast of a course, not necessarily lengthwise. I think it neutralizes the long hitter just because of how severe the greens are, how severe the rough was. Obviously, the course setup, was extremely tough. We had a lot of rain that week, so it was generally softer, but I don't even think they were trying to get the course any firmer as far as greens wise because it would just almost be unplayable. But I just think, there's so many different corners to these greens that it's basically you got to hit your spot. You got to hit it in the fairway, number one. That's the first objective. And then the second objective is leaving the ball on a portion of the green to where honestly you're trying to hit to a spot where you can guarantee like a two putt because those greens are so severe slope wise that you can three putt or more from inside of 10 feet easily all day long. But I just think the general golfer, it's just such a brutal test, and chipping around the greens is so tough with how long the rough is, and it's one of those courses that beats you up. You got to be mentally tough, especially during a U.S. Open, to push through those troughs in your rounds that kind of can get you spinning, get your wheels spinning, and ultimately that's essentially what a U.S. Open test is.
So, what was your mindset going into it? Because that was the idea was going into Oakmont. Over par is probably going to win this tournament, and it
Hmm.
might have been if you hadn't made one of the most ridiculous putts in the history of the U.S. Open, which is a separate issue we'll get to in a minute. But as you're taking on something like Oakmont, which I mean, they take pride in making this the toughest thing in the world. What was your approach going into it?
Well, leading up to the U.S. Open, I just didn't want to embarrass myself and not break 90. Honestly, like I was from all the
Come
hype and,
on.
and the lead up of Oakmont. I had never stepped foot on property. I had only played one U.S. Open prior to Oakmont, and I just know what type of test the U.S. Open is like. So I really was just hoping to show up and not embarrass myself. Obviously, get 4 rounds there would be a good accomplishment to play 4 rounds, making the cut. But I didn't want to sell myself short, but I also didn't want to underestimate the challenge that I was going to have.
Yeah.
But I knew I was playing great. I had such a good start to the first quarter of the year. Um, and it was weird because I was sending my coach swing videos the week before I had the week off before the U.S. Open, and we're just sending videos back just for some feedback to get an idea of how my swing's feeling, what it's looking like. And I said, "What do you see in this swing here?" And I sent him a video, and he goes, "I see the U.S. Open champ." And so it was actually, I kind of I didn't laugh. I was like, "Okay, yeah, okay,
Oh,
fair
so
enough."
okay. So just this is interesting. Like, did you ask him why he saw that?
No,
Or
but I just think he knew I was swinging well. He knew I was playing well. He actually, after the U.S. Open, or sorry, after the Players, after we lost, and it was, we were going through our feels after the round. He's like, "Dude, don't worry. Like, because of this, like, it's something bigger is gonna come from this." And it's just so crazy how, and you have little things like that in your ear constantly, like positive things and things to reinforce what you're doing. How that can just change things. I don't know if it was some sort of wavelength that put me on or whatever, but it's that's why I appreciate the team that I have around me.
yeah. So when you heard that from him, you said you kind of laughed, and then how did you process it after that?
I was like, no, seriously, like, what do you see? Do you see anything like technically wrong here? Like, I was like, come on, let's be realistic here. Like, what do you see? Is there anything bad? Is there, I'm kind of hitting a little bit of a pull, and he just, after he said that first comment, he was like, "Oh, just, get a little more open on the downswing," and it was fine. But I think he was playing the long game there mentally.
Yeah. Okay. So you have to play the long game mentally at a place like Oakmont.
Mm.
You're looking at that leaderboard going into the weekend. Some really interesting names out there, right? You have yourself, you have Rory, you have Sam Burns, you have a lot of people that were really big names out there.
Right.
And how did you say to yourself, okay, listen, if I want to pull this off, I have to focus on me and not focus on what other people are doing? How do you go through that process?
Yeah, I was just really focused on trying to play my game. I mean, as cliche as that sounds, that's all you can really do. Going into U.S. Open Sunday, I wasn't sure what to expect. I'd never played the Sunday of U.S. Open. I just know it's going to be tough. I know it's going to be a grind. I think I was maybe one back of the lead going into Sunday. I knew that I had a really good chance if I maintained to have an opportunity on the back nine, on Sunday. And that's all I really wanted was to be in contention with 9 holes to play.
Yeah.
And, the first few holes didn't go as planned, and it started looking pretty bleak that I would have, a chance on the back nine. But the rain came in, the delay, we went back in, it kind of took a little reset, and went back out there and kind of with a fresh aspect, fresh mental aspect, and went for broke, and it worked out.
So you're saying that little delay helped you?
That was huge.
Yeah.
Big time.
What? I mean, obviously, like you said, it wasn't going the way you wanted before that. So what did you, when you got the break, how did you say to yourself, okay, that's behind me now, and let me just sort of refocus?
Yeah, so I was 5 over through 6, the first 6 holes or something like that. Then I made some solid pars to get off the bogey train. I made pars on maybe 7 and 8, 6, 7 and 8 maybe, and or 7 and 8. And then we were on the tee box on 9 and put the tee in the ground. It's starting to rain. You could see this black cloud over on the eastern side of the course, and then you hear the horn goes off. And it was almost like a sense of relief. I was like, okay, like I have a minute to kind of absorb what happened, but also to take a little time out and reset and go back in the clubhouse and just kind of try to recenter my focus. And we went in there, and it was nice to have my coach and my caddy. They were talking to me. They said, hey, bud, like, you have 10 holes left. You're 4 or 5 back of the lead with 9 holes to play. He's like, if you teed up Monday, or if you showed up Monday and was told you're going to be 5 shots back going into the back 9 on Sunday, you would take that, right? I'm like, yeah, I mean, that sounds worse than it is, but no, I would take that. So it was almost like a switch, whereas like I didn't feel like I lost anything. At first I felt like I lost maybe my chances of winning the tournament, to now, okay, I still have a chance, like a really good chance, because the back 9 on Sunday at any tournament, no lead is safe. I mean, granted, guys have blown two shots on the final hole at a regular event, let alone a U.S. Open with 5. So I kind of changed my perspective, my mentality. I'm like, all right, let's just go out there, get comfortable with your swing. It was nice to have another warm up to kind of get the feel right, whatever I was lacking at the start of the round, and just go back there and just say, okay, fairways, greens, just have putts, grind everything out, and we'll add them up when the round's over.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a lot in tennis matches too, where there's a rain delay and guys that are like down a set and down a break, they're like, okay, thank God, I needed a chance to reset. Do you think you would have been able to find that reset if there hadn't been the rain delay?
So funny enough, you bring up tennis. I referenced earlier that week when I was, in contention the whole week. Starting Thursday, I was leading, and they were talking about, what's the difference between this year and last year? Because last year I was really struggling. In 2024, I almost, it was looking like I was going to lose my card unless I finished the second half of the season really well, which I ended up doing. And I said I watched this movie Wimbledon with Kirsten Dunst,
yes,
and so it was an inspiring movie. I saw that after I ended up keeping my card, but it really resonated with me, with the tennis player that he felt like he was on his way out.
Paul Bettany, I think, was the actor.
Paul Bettany, yes.
Yeah.
He was on his way out, got another berth into the Wimbledon, ends up winning. So I've referenced that, and then in my post U.S. Open conference, press conference, they were bringing that up, and one guy from the media said, well, after we started talking about the rain delay, he goes, in that movie you referenced in the final match, because keep in mind, I watched the movie on a red eye from Phoenix to England. And so I was kind of like in and out. I kind of got most of the movie. I didn't really see exactly the entire end of it, but I got the gist of it. He's like, in that movie, he's down like 2 or 3 sets. Rain delay comes, goes inside, comes out, and wins Wimbledon in the final match. So I thought it was super ironic that literally I did identically the same thing, at the U.S. Open, which is pretty crazy.
It's insane, but it speaks to when you're in the cauldron. And I think it's different for golfers and tennis players more than any other athlete because, yeah, you got your caddy, and you can do a little bit of coaching in tennis, but you're sort of out there on your own. Like you don't have teammates to rely on, and that reset, I think, was really significant because it allowed you to sort of talk to yourself almost, right?
Yeah, I mean, when things aren't going well, everything feels like it's just unraveling so fast and everything's happening so fast and you're hitting more shots and it's happening so quick that you're just like, God, I wish I can just go hide somewhere for like 5 minutes. And then literally like I got that opportunity with the rain delay and we got to go inside and that was the trick. And it happened at the Players too. On Sunday, I was not playing great the front nine on Sunday at the Players. I was probably 1 or 2 over. Had a rain delay, came back. It was like a 4-hour rain delay. Came back, and I think I finished the round like 2 or 3 under from that point on to get me in a playoff with Rory. So me and my caddy, when that horn went off at Oakmont, we kind of looked at each other. We're like, all right, like we know that this is a good thing because we've been there before.
So obviously then we get down to the 18th, and everyone's like, just 2 putts, and we'll take it from there, and we'll see what the playoff situation is. And, then the weather, because it rained again, and the course was soaked, and it was getting dark. I mean, who knows when you would have finished in the new format. So what was going through your mind when you looked over that putt? Did you ever say to yourself, hey, if I make this, I win? Or were you just thinking, let's just get it close?
So the last...
Be honest.
God's my witness. This is exactly what I told myself. I did my routine. We read the putt. I got into my routine, and I'm behind the hole, or I'm behind the ball, looking down the line to the hole, and I'm just getting a feel for speed, doing a couple practice strokes. And the last thing I say to myself is, this is just another $100 putt. And so to give you some context on that is every practice run I play with my buddies, every hole we go to a ridiculous part of the green, and then caddies, my buddies, my caddy, the coaches will all go in and hit like a crazy 50-footer or more for $100. And if you make it, everyone owes you $100. And so, I stepped over it and I just tried my best to dumb down what was at stake here. I'm trying to win the U.S. Open, a major. And, it was far from being done, obviously 64 feet away. So much can go wrong from that distance on that green. And, I just tried to make it stupid and simple, and I said, this is just another $100 make, and cashed it, and it was just pandemonium from there, and just
slightly more than $100 make. I mean, I understand the premise, but it was a little more than that. So what went through your mind as soon as you saw it? What was the first thing that you thought as soon as you saw that cup go over that ball go over the lip of the cup?
I was in shock. I mean, I was relieved, shocked. Out of body experience, I never really showed too much emotion on the golf course. But the only thing I remember is hearing my caddies scream in my ear, and it was a great scream. I'll always remember it, and just jumping up and down, and just how loud it was. It was just such a surreal moment, and it was one of those things where it just happened, and you can only look back and just think of it as destiny, honestly, to finish it off in that fashion, given what I went through at the start of the round to ending on that note was just, you couldn't really write a better story.
No, you couldn't. And one of the things that I thought was really amazing, whether it was McIntyre or Tyrrell Hatton, everybody, they were sort of, McIntyre was waiting to see what happened, to see if he would be a part of something else if you didn't make that putt. And Tyrrell Hatton's there, and they're actually talking to him at his press conference, and I've never forget his reactions. Oh my God, he holed it. What
Yeah.
what what did fellow players say to you about that putt after you made it?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I saw that clip of Terrell. That is like one of my favorite clips. I loved it because it's so
Yeah,
genuine and that guy's so
yeah.
raw, and he tells you what's on his mind. And but yeah, literally, like I've never really felt so much respect. I feel like from my peers. They were so happy for me, and it felt genuine. Like literally everyone came out of the woodworks to congratulate me and just tell me how happy they were for me, and that I earned it. And that was kind of the biggest thing that I took from it. So yeah, it was so cool, and it was an experience I'll always remember for the rest of my life.
Okay, so you go from the highs of the U.S. Open, you play the rest of the season, and then you obviously you're going to play for the Ryder Cup,
Mm.
and that has been obviously a very controversial topic for a variety of reasons. But you were a Ryder Cup rookie, so just the overall experience. What did you think it would be going into it as opposed to what it was?
Okay, so I was stressed, like, for the Ryder Cup. Like, from the time I talked to Keegan, which was literally the week after the U.S. Open, he's like, "You're on this effing team. You're locked." And although formally I wasn't, but points wise, everything I was in.
Yeah.
And just from that point on, like all I could think about was the Ryder Cup, how I'm going to perform. Am I going to be ready? Can I handle this? And honestly, like leading up to it was just so much stress. Like I tried to just put it in the back of my mind, thinking like, okay, this is 3 months away. Like just let's focus on finishing out the season, trying to get more wins, doing what you got to do here first, and then we'll focus on that. But it just consumed so much of my mental space that everything I was thinking about the Ryder Cup was only the only thing I could think about. And so I was just worried that I wouldn't play good because I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with me playing poorly and letting myself down, but here I am, like on the Ryder Cup team. You can lay it down your teammates, your country, your captains, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And I just remembered, telling myself, dude, like, and that was the other great thing was, yes, I might have been getting in my head negatively and stuff, and that's kind of been something that I struggle with. But you know, JT and Keegan, they're like, dude, you've earned this spot. Like, you've won a major. No one else on this team other but you and Scotty have won majors. Like, you've earned your way to this team. You have nothing to be stressed about or be afraid of. Like, you're gonna kick their ass. We're gonna kick some ass. And I was just putting a lot of pressure on myself. So eventually, when I got there, I started getting into the routine of things. It's a new thing. I've never been on the Ryder Cup, so uh, I ended up feeling more comfortable. And then, the first match was a nice way to. Yes, I was very nervous on that first tee. I was nervous on every shot, literally. But once I got that first match kind of under my belt, even though we lost, I was able to calm down and be like, okay, like I almost had to experience the worst case scenario from what I thought in order to feel comfortable. And it wasn't as bad as I thought, but it ended up being a really fun week. Unfortunately lost, but we made things interesting there on Sunday.
Sunday was interesting. Friday and Saturday were tough. I want to get a couple of thoughts about you because when I had Colt on the show, he told me that you knew ahead of time you weren't going to play alternate shot, and he also said you dropped a 60 on him when you played. So kudos to you on that little.
Yeah, that's what I got to shoot to beat him. My God,
Yeah.
I got to ask for so many shots these days.
And now he wants his amateur status back, which is another seperate issue we can get into
We'll go.
later.
Yeah, we'll get that later.
We'll,
Yeah.
we'll deal with that. So were you surprised that you weren't playing alternate shot?
Maybe a little bit. I wasn't sure what format I would start in. I talked to Keegan, a few weeks prior, and he was just he was adamant about having a pretty veteran heavy lineup going out in the first match, which was foursomes. So it had nothing to do with how I was playing, had nothing to do with what equipment I played. It was more of just he wanted to put guys out there first that have been in that arena and have had success and had the experience. Then, you know, versus getting my feet wet in four ball, which is probably an easier format, which I think
Yeah.
was appropriate. But yeah, I mean, who knows? I don't know. I don't know what the thought process was for Saturday's matches, but we didn't want to. I think Keegan didn't want to freak out and start changing things around, just assuming put the batting lineup out there and eventually get things turned around.
Yeah, I guess, and again, I don't know, and I've certainly said it. There were some things that I questioned about some of the decisions he made, but I'm not sure if anything would have changed just how well the Europeans played. But
Yeah.
from my perspective, knowing what you just did at Oakmont, especially with the putter, and then knowing Sam Burns, who statistically was the best putter on tour this past season, to me, those are guys I want out there in alternate shot in case there's a wayward approach that you can make something up with the blade. So I was kind of surprised that neither of you guys were in foursomes or alternate shots.
Yeah, I thought there would be a little bit of a change, whether it was someone else. I mean, I think Cam was the only one that subbed in for the foursomes on Saturday. That was different, maybe.
Yeah,
But yeah, I honestly though the European team, they were playing so good. They were putting amazing. I mean, they were shooting, 8 under par on alternate shot, which is
it's
it's
crazy.
just that's just so hard to do. And with the course setup, eventually, yeah, it boiled down to the putting, and we would make good putts, and they would make it on top of us, or we'd be in there tight, and they would make a 30, 40 footer to beat us to the hole. And now it's like, okay, I mean, that happened to me and Scotty on Friday.
Yeah.
We both ham and egged 13 through 16 birding those holes, and we didn't win a hole as we were three down already. So it's like, what can you do? Birdie 5 holes in a row and don't win a hole. So, they just outright beat us, Friday and Saturday. And, unfortunately, we were just too far behind going into Sunday.
We'll get into a couple other things about the Ryder Cup in a second, but alternate shot to me it's sort of my, I don't say it's my pet peeve, but it's the one thing I think that where the U.S. has its biggest problems. I looked up the Ryder Cup in 2023, the President's Cup last year. Not that the President's Cup is in any way similar to the Ryder Cup.
Mm.
It's a team format, but they have the same formats. And in alternate shot or foursomes, over those last three cups, Team USA is 6-19-0. How do we
Wow.
get better at alternate shot for someone that has played that was in the tournament or in the matches and didn't play it? How do you think we as a country need to get better at playing alternate shot?
Man, that's tough. I mean, I don't know, man. We literally from behind the scenes, like we did everything you possibly could under the sun to really prep and match up the right foursomes teams. I mean, we had analytics, we had ball testing, we had personality tests. I mean, my God, like we did kind of everything. I don't know other than what the Europeans have, other than, the confidence from winning, tons of foursome matches. I don't know if that's the difference maker, but that's a really good question. I mean, I don't know how you can go about making more events alternate shots, but
Yeah.
I mean there could be something in the European development where alternate shot was a format played very often. I mean, I know I played Muirfield in Scotland this year, and literally the club you can only have two balls in play at the club, no matter what time of day who you're playing with. So meaning if you have a foursome, you can only play two balls, so alternate shot for one between four guys. It's weird. So I don't know if it's like a cultural thing or something that these guys are used to, but they might do it a lot more frequently, and growing up maybe over there in the European countries.
Well, they do have a little bit of a more of a program in place to get the Sevi Cup that they play over there. They do have, it seems like, a little bit more of a program to get
Right.
people used to the Ryder Cup. But for me, JJ, it comes down to one thing, and I want to get your opinion on this. When Shane Lowry sank the putt to make sure that Europe retained the cup, and they went on to actually win it, so that the envelope rule wasn't a controversy, which we'll get into. He said something that I thought was really interesting. He said afterwards, as I was walking up the 18th, I told my caddy, I have a chance to do the coolest thing in the world. secure the putt to make sure we keep the Ryder Cup. And he said, I won the Open as an Irishman in Ireland, Northern Ireland, at Royal Portrush. And this meant more to me. I don't know how many American players would say, I would rather sink the winning putt at the Ryder Cup than the putt you sank to win the U.S. Open at Oakmont. And I don't begrudge people for saying that.
Right.
I do feel like, for whatever reason, this thing about the Ryder Cup seems to mean a little more in terms of its significance for those European players than the American players. Is that fair?
I don't know if it's fair.
I mean,
I think,
would you? I guess would you say no? I would rather sink the winning putt at the Ryder Cup than the putt I sunk at Oakmont.
yeah, I mean, that's a really tough question. You know, I think that perspective comes with having played Ryder Cups and understanding what that was. Like, if you had asked me
Yeah,
that before I played, I would have chose US Open all day
yeah.
long. I mean, honestly, I still, for me, it's a toss up, honestly.
And
But
again, I don't begrudge you if you feel that way. Like I
yeah,
think most people would think that way, but I was blown away when I heard that from Shane.
yeah. I mean, man, that's a very dedicated answer by Shane. But I do believe when after playing the Ryder Cup, I understand the intensity of what it means to be not only a Ryder Cupper, but to be on that team and to have a chance at winning and representing your country. Like, it meant way more than I ever thought it would. And yeah, maybe moving forward, yeah, if I already had a major and all that under my belt, and I would rather do that. Yes, 100%. I'd rather make the winning putt for the Ryder Cup because it's so intense. I mean, you're spending every waking hour with these guys. You see what the captains are doing behind the scenes to give you whatever you need to do whatever is possible for you to succeed. And obviously, your country is behind you, and it's such a huge magnitude of an event that, like, you don't really understand it until you play it. And like, if I was asked that question before I was on the Ryder Cup team or ever was on the Ryder Cup team, I probably would have chosen myself, a self victory over winning the Ryder Cup. But like, I'll never forget, like, just we were all right there on the green watching Shane make that putt, and it was just like, God, like, I wish that was us so badly,
Yeah.
like winning that cup.
So now you would change your answer, you think?
Yeah. hmm
Wow.
I get it. I get it because it just means so much. I mean, we're playing for each other. We're playing for, I mean, and then you get to share it with everyone. Like, yeah, you win the US Open, it's just kind of all yours. You win a tournament, you win a Masters, it's like just yours. I mean, obviously you have your small team and family, but it's like you're sharing this with your country, you're sharing this with your fans, you're sharing with your teammates, all the hard work, the wives, the families. Like, it's definitely bigger. Definitely bigger.
Wow. I actually, I mean, kudos to you for saying that. I was not expecting that, but
Yeah.
it does change you, right? Like what you just said, I get it. For me, the Ryder Cup is my favorite thing. I love football, obviously, I love golf, but like to me, the Ryder Cup is just a different deal. And I'll never forget, David Duval was on that '99 team at Brookline, and there were a lot of guys that were like, well, what's the big deal about this? And then they fell behind, they came back and won, and David sort of said the same thing, like, you don't really understand the appreciation for the event until you play in it, and it definitely
Yep.
has changed you.
Oh my God, yes. And Keegan really reinforced that after the tournament was over. He was just like, dude, you're a Ryder Cupper for life.
Yeah,
And no one else that's done that can see you eye to eye on what this tournament is like. And I think that's why my perspective has changed on, what the importance of the Ryder Cup is, because 100% you have no idea. Like, honestly, like, before I was on the Ryder Cup, I really didn't care to be on the Ryder Cup,
yeah.
because it was obviously seemed like an unattainable goal, years prior.
I
But,
saw that on your Instagram. Yeah, yeah,
it's just like, yeah, what's the big deal? But like, once you are in that arena and you feel those feelings that you will never feel ever other than in a Ryder Cup, maybe coming down the stretch of a major, maybe. I mean, I was talking to Tony Finau on the range the other day, and he's like, dude, it's crazy that you'll see like how many guys that have played Ryder Cups that how that just like took them to a whole other level because of
Yeah.
that immense pressure and being able to pull things off and succeed. Now when you get to, a regular event or a major, you almost can belittle it because of the pressure that you felt at the Ryder Cup. And it's so true.
Did you see the quotes from Keegan the other day about the captaincy when he was at Travelers Media Day?
Yeah, yeah, I read those, yeah.
What do you make of those? Because I do feel awful for him because in my perspective, he should have been on the 2023 team, and
Yeah.
then quite frankly, he was playing well enough
Yep.
to be on the 2025 team, but because he had accepted the captaincy because they were trying to sort of do a make good for him not making the 2023 team, I feel like he's been like sort of haunted by these last two Ryder Cups.
Yeah. I he was put in a tough spot.
Yeah.
The whole team really believed he should have been on the team, and we tried to almost talk him into it, but
How
he
close did you
accepted the
get?
role.
How close did you get?
I mean, it got down to literally, yeah, really close to like before he had to make picks.
Yeah.
He thought about it that long, to where he had to finalize the lineup. But I mean, it was 10th in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
we said, okay, if you weren't the captain and you're sitting here number 10 in the world, is that captain going to take you? Of course, 100% of the time with your
Yeah.
experience, nonetheless. So it was tough, but you know, I have so much respect for Keegan because not only did he handle all this, Ryder Cup responsibility, captaincy responsibility, he played great. He won an elevated event. He's a father and a husband. He's dealing with, triple the amount of work that, the normal guy has to deal with taking on this Ryder Cup captaincy role. And, I didn't really know him very well before this whole Ryder Cup experience, but he's fairly keeps to himself, but he almost had to like come out of his shell to really like be a captain, and I think it took a lot out of him. But he made us aware that like this had been life changing for him, like being a part of the team as a captain and being the leader and having to be the one to initiate and to you know interact, whereas before he can kind of, hang around and as a player, just kind of be, in the mix. But now he was the leader and, that's kind of not really his personality. And now he's, grown a brotherhood with us, us 12 guys on the team. And it's, going into Sunday, I really felt for him because he just was, he put so much effort into giving us everything we needed to succeed and showing us how important it was to play for our country and for each other. And, it almost felt like I wanted to play more for him because I knew he had sacrificed so much. And then also with the whole deal of him, kind of being forced out of playing, in a sense, like, let's put it in your hands to die by the sword, whether you pick yourself or not. I mean, it was just tough. And, he handled it so great. And, I just wish we would have won for him and our country.
Colt Nose said Keegan should be captain again. And Keegan has said again at Travelers, like he wants to try and find a way to play again.
Yeah.
I feel bad because I feel like, I think the only way he can sort of get over this is if he finds a way to get onto the team in a dare manner and is a contributor in a win. Otherwise, if he gets on there and they fall short again, it might haunt him again. So we'll see if he can play well enough. That's we'll find that out in a while. But if he's not, do you think, like Colt said, he should be captain again?
I do. I think it'd be ultimate redemption if he played his way on, played, and then like maybe 2 years later he captained and won. That would be the ultimate comeback. But I think he deserves another chance. It was almost like they're trying to usher in this new wave of tradition or whatever they want to call it to the formalities of the Ryder Cup, whether it's captaincy age. And I mean, gosh, like, he did a cool thing bringing in a lot of vice captains that we all know. I can't speak on past Ryder Cups because I hadn't been on them, but from what they were saying, it was a lot of guys that hadn't been on tour for a while, a lot of guys that you don't really see often, but now it's like G-Dub and Kiz and Sneds and Webb, guys that we still see like week in and week out, but that are older and there for us in a mentoring way to be our vice captains. And it felt like a really tight knit squad. Just kind of bringing guys that we see more often around as vice captains, and then obviously with Keegan being a younger face, has been refreshing, I guess, for the PGA
Yeah.
America, and hopefully they continue going down that route because I think ultimately that'll pay off in the end.
Well, we'll see. I mean, look, obviously, it would be a controversial decision because of what went down, whether he is back. But the Europeans look like they're going to keep Luke Donald for a third straight Ryder Cup situation. So maybe there is some point to being a little consistent there. Speaking of consistency, like we said, huge year for you. Win your first major, make your first Ryder Cup team, and I want to sort of ask you, how much do you change your game or your expectations now because of those things? And the reason I bring this up, Ian Baker Finch, who just retired after a long career calling golf, he won the 1991 Open Championship at Birkdale, and after he won that, he said many times in interviews, "Oh, okay, now this is the new standard for me, and I've got to start winning more majors." So his entire approach about golf became, I got to win more majors, I got to do this different, I got to do that different, and it sort of messed him up, and stopped him from being the golfer that he was, that allowed him to win that first major.
Right.
So I guess when you get into that situation where you bag that first major, you're on that first Ryder Cup team, and those are the things you want, right? You want them more,
Yep.
but how do you put that in perspective so it doesn't swallow you up like that process seemed to have swallowed up Finchy?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a different level of golf that I'm at now, I guess, a very elite level of golf. And, I think you can put a lot of pressure on yourself as far as trying to maintain or validate or, add to, successfully wise. But, for a while, I'm afraid I just don't want to get too complacent. Maybe I do
Yeah.
need to feel more aggressiveness. I mean, I don't want to feel like, okay, I accomplished the pinnacle of golf in my terms. Maybe it doesn't get better. Maybe it is what it is. But no, I'm gonna keep plugging along. I'm not young anymore. I'm probably considered more of an older guy on the tour. Well,
Please, shut up,
just
dude.
turned 35, but I looked up a crazy stat like VJ won something like 80% of his events
Yeah.
after 36 years old or something like that. So who knows, maybe I could, go the VJ route and have success, the older I get. But, I'm just lucky to be given the opportunity to have a really good team around me that also keep me in check. Don't let me get negative or overly confident or cocky, but there's a good balance between all of us. And I found really a good recipe and marriage with what I do on the course, and it's obviously paid off really well. It started at the first event of the year, and it lasted all the way through end of September to the Ryder Cup. So yeah, I don't see a need in trying to change or adjust anything. I mean, maybe I could do some work in between the ears,
We
to
could all use that, brother.
yeah, and maybe not rev up a little bit more, but just I think the biggest thing for me would be getting comfortable in these bigger events, which I've proven myself that I can, and just see where it takes me. I mean, I got 5-year exemption on tour, which is something I could. I've always wanted to play freely, and now I
Right.
can.
So, first major, second win on tour, Ryder Cup. What are your expectations for 2026?
Um,
Besides
I like to,
shooting a 60 out when next time you play with Colt again.
yeah, take more Colts money. I I just like to stick more to the process oriented goals. I feel like I would like to stick with the goals of being in contention, and that's kind of what I did this year. Was I said I just want to give myself a chance on Sunday every often as I could, whether it's every week or once a week or once a year. I mean, I want to give myself the opportunity to win a tournament, and regardless of how that happens, like I'm going to be okay with it. And I think that was a cool little mindset that I had this year was when I did have those opportunities. The first time I didn't know how to handle it, I was like thinking to myself, "Oh my God, like don't blow this." And this is at the Sony, like, "Oh, don't, you might not get another chance. Like you better do it this time. You don't know when you're gonna have another chance." And I didn't do it, but I think focusing too much on the outcome added the extra pressure that I didn't need, and obviously didn't help me play my best. But the players, even at Cognizant, the players in the U.S. Open, even going down to like that last hole of the U.S. Open, I just tried telling myself like I had all to gain, like I had
Yeah.
nothing to lose. Like I just wanted to let myself know that like everything was going to be okay if I failed. And that just kind of like freed me up, and like that's the easiest way mentally to like play your best golf.
Yeah, what's the old saying? Free your mind and your body will follow, right?
Exactly. Just let it go.
Yeah. Well, we're all trying to get there. Trust me. Even us 7.5 index handicappers are trying to get there. Listen, JJ, great year. Congratulations, a lot of fun, and thanks for being on. And we'll see what happens when you start teeing it up again.
All right, Trey. Thanks for having me, man.
So once again, thanks to JJ for joining us. We'll see what happens for him in 2026 and see if he can keep dropping the 60 on Colt Knost and take more Colt's change. But big things expected for Colt going forward, and who knows what happens in 2 years with the Ryder Cup. There are a lot of interesting possibilities about what the U.S. will do in terms of the team and the captain for Adair Manor. Thanks again for watching this episode. Again, if you like what you heard and saw, make sure you click that like and subscribe button, especially on YouTube, and we'll see you next time on another edition of Straight Facts Homie.